All right. In this video, I want to start talking about Brian Dellinger's second video about the flat earth, entitled something along the lines of Shall Not Be Moved. The YouTube channel is Born Again Barbarian, and I'm starting to see a different side of this Brian fella. Now, he kept saying that the flat earth is not worthy of his time, not worthy of his study. And I thought that was a bit strange. Because of this right here. In Proverbs 18 at verse 13, it says, "He that answereth a matter before he heareth it, it is folly and shame unto him." Now, I can tell from what Brian has said about the flat earth and not understanding the movement of the sun and the seasons that he has never even looked into the flat earth and why people would believe such a thing. Right? And what I think is interesting is that this is at verse 13, number of rebellion. Right? If you're not going to even look into something and you judge it before you even look into it, it's a folly and a shame unto you. Right? So for him to say it's not worthy of his time and his study is not very humble and meek. It's not the fruit of the Spirit there. It's very arrogant. What I was thinking about when he said that, I was like, well, at least Gene Kim, when he mentioned the flat earth, he would say, I don't know. He's like, I'm not siding on either side. He's just saying, if you're going to actually pick a side, you better be willing to bet your soul on it. And if you're not, then shut up. So at least Gene Kim had a bit more humility than Brian here in just saying, I don't know. Brian, on the other hand, acting as though he does know when he clearly doesn't. For example, I made a video about his only flat earth video that was about 7 minutes long. And I mentioned two things in that video. And these things are kind of important because he said something that was damning to himself. He said, it's not of God because it is a purposeful cover-up. And I was thinking, all right, so since you're not actually getting into the evidence for the flat earth and disproving it, that's a purposeful cover-up. It was like a video I was recently watching from somebody talking about how once saved, always saved is false. And they would mention in the video about these supposedly seeming verses that would insinuate once you're saved and you can't be lost. But he wouldn't talk about them. Right? That's a purposeful cover-up. And according to Brian, that's not of God. And I would agree. It's basically lying. And we can see he's doing the same thing. For an evidence that the earth is not moving would be Joshua. I believe it's chapter 10. It talks about how the sun and the moon stood still. And that's what the word of God says. This is God saying this. The sun and the moon stood still. It doesn't say the earth stood still. It said the sun and the moon stood still. Now, there's still people who want to say, oh, the sun and moon stood still from the perspective of the people looking. Okay. Well, that means that this spherical earth, let's use this boulder here, that's spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, all of a sudden stopped. If that happened, there would be devastating earthquakes and tsunamis that would have devastated all life on the earth, going from 1,000 miles an hour to zero. Not to mention when it goes from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour again, that it's going to cause more earthquakes and another tsunami that ends up making sure all life on earth was destroyed. That didn't happen because the earth isn't moving. Do you believe the word of God, or do you believe Brian Dellinger? Because you can't believe both. And he's not going to talk about that. That's a purposeful cover-up, showing that that is not of God. And I'm starting to see a different side of this Brian fella. See a side that other people were telling me about, but I didn't quite see or believe until now. And sorry about my voice going up. I got bronchitis, so sometimes it sounds a little deeper, and sometimes I start to squeak. Just take it as some comic relief, I suppose. But anyway, he starts off the video by finally giving his evidence to show that the earth moves. And this is the foundation of the video here. This is the first bit of evidence. So prepare to be amazed. Now, this is not the foundation of my video. It's the foundation of his video. These are the scriptures that he gets into. Briefly mentions 1 Chronicles 16, verse 30. Fear before him all earth. The world also shall be stable, that it be not moved. So here, God is speaking, right? This is God's word. The earth is not going to be moved, right? Now, over here in Psalms chapter 10, this is what he uses to try to say that that's not what it means. God doesn't really mean what he says, right? Like the serpent in the garden. God didn't really mean you would die when you ate it, right? Really what he meant is you become like gods, knowing good and evil. He didn't want you to be like him, right? He meant something other than what he clearly said. And this is what he uses to try to say that. In Psalm chapter 10, it's from the point of view of the wicked through his pride, right? The wicked boasts of his heart's desire, right? This is from the point of view of the wicked. It says here at verse 6 in Psalms 10, he hath said in his heart, right, the lost, wicked man, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. He actually compared God saying something to the lost, wicked man saying something and put them on the same level. So if God says something shall not be moved and the lost, wicked man says the same thing, there's equal power in their word, according to Brian, as he mocks it, saying, oh, I guess there's these wicked people that just won't be moved. And in some sense, they won't be moved because they've hardened their heart like the Pharaoh. So yes, they won't be. But at the same time, they're fallible man, not the infallible God. Even me, as a Christian, if I were to say, I'm not going to be moved, I shall not be moved, that doesn't mean diddly squat. If God wants me moved, I'm going to be moved. Whether willingly or unwillingly on my part, I'm going to be moved. Yet if God says I'm not going to be moved, then nobody can move me. But he actually starts his video off acting as though a lost sinner saying he shall not be moved in his heart is comparable to God saying that the earth shall not be moved. As if this wicked man has the power and authority in his word equal to that of God. So if he's not going to be moved, that means he's not going to be moved. It's like, are you serious? That's how you're going to start your video. Making that kind of comparison. It's like, okay, this guy's off. This guy is off. Yeah, that just goes over the notes real quick here. Just starting to see a little bit of that condescending arrogance that he has, which is the opposite of the fruit of the Spirit, meekness, humility, as he keeps saying that this is unworthy of him in his time, right? Yet, he spent the time to put together these videos and then spent about an hour making each one of these videos, but it's not worth his time. If I say something's not worth my time, I don't put time into it. That would be hypocritical. But you see, what he's actually doing is two things. One is, well, three things. Obviously, being a hypocrite, saying, "Oh, this is not worthy my time. It's a waste of time. It's a distraction." But I'm going to go partake in doing it and feed the distraction, right? And then the second thing he's doing is he's just kind of dismissing the other side, belittling it. That's not even worthy of me to even look into. I'm not even going to bother looking into it because it's so below me, right? He's belittling it and exalting himself in the same breath, right? And the third thing he's doing is he's provoking, antagonizing, like he's poking. Oh, you flat earthers, you're just stupid. You're not even worthy of my time. And just so below me. I'm not even going to look into your arguments and even, no, it's not even, no. It's so below me. Ugh, right? And he's showing that pride and arrogance that good trees don't produce bad fruit and bad trees don't produce good fruit, right? And it's the fruit of the Spirit. And the fruit of the Spirit is meekness. That is not meek. That is not humble. Yeah, I get at times you're going to put your foot down, you're going to say some things, but this is not one of those cases there. There's people who are leaving comments to me now trying to act as though the flat earth is a trick that is going to get you to deny creation and offend the sacrifice of Jesus. And I was like, what? How does believing the flat earth disbelieve the creation? How does it actually offend the, the sacrifice? This doesn't make any sense. Maybe they can explain it, and I just don't see what they're talking about. But they're just saying some very strange things, right? So, yeah, it could be that we have another Baptist branch off cult because the Baptists love to worship their pastors. So we might have something like that going on here. But it's just weird that he's willing to spend the time looking into the obvious enemy side, such as the Jesuits and the Freemasons and Catholicism, showing his books on the Catechism and the Dewey Rheims Bible, where he's doing these studies, and he breaks down by, like an interesting study he had was about using the Catholics' own writings to show them that they are sinning by claiming that their Eucharist is actually the literally body and blood of Jesus Christ. And he was using their own writings to show this. Very good study. I don't say not to study those things, but to say that, hey, you are, as a flat earther, you're below them, where he's trying to say, oh, you're deceived, but I'm not going to look into that to show you how you're deceived. I'm just going to dismiss you. But these Catholics and Jesuits and Freemasons, who a lot of them know what they're doing, I'm going to spend the time to reach out to them, right? But these people aren't deceived. They're willingly doing what they're doing, but I'm going to go after them and spend my time reaching them. But to you who just fallen for a trick, I'm just going to belittle you and dismiss you. That's strange. You know them by their fruit, right? That's not good fruit. Looks like Brian needs to be pruned. But yeah, I'm going to check out the rest of the video now, take some notes, and yeah, I'll try to make this one shorter than the other one, but you know, it is what it is. So keep on watching. All right, continuing with this here. What I thought Brian was going to end up doing when he was going to say that the earth moves, I thought he was going to talk about earthquakes and mudslides and stupid stuff like that, saying, see, the earth moves. He did that, but a little differently. And I'll get into that by the end of this little part I'm going to do here. Hopefully I can just fly through this. But first things first, he talks about Psalms 15, verse 5, where it says, He that putteth not out his money to usury, nor taketh reward against the innocent, he that doeth these things shall never be moved. And it's talking about all the things mentioned here, such as walking uprightly, working righteousness, speaketh the truth in his heart, right? So it's not just not doing usury. It's about everything talked about here. You shall not be moved. And this means what it says, right? You would not be moved. It doesn't mean you will not move as your arms and legs and what have you. It's you're not going to be moved in character. You're not going to be moved and uprooted, right? You're like a tree. You're going to stay in there and you're going to do your thing, and that's that, right? No one's going to come chop you down. Like Nebuchadnezzar was depicted as a tree, but he didn't live like this and he was chopped down. And how was he chopped down? He lost his mind and became a beast, right? So you're not being moved is that you're going to have a stable, sound mind, emotional health, be emotionally healthy, and upright character, right? So that's what it's getting into. And he brought up a bunch of verses, but I'm only going to use 3 because it all mentions the same thing. You just need 2 or 3 witnesses, so I figured I'll use 3. Psalm 16, verse 8, I have set the Lord always before me because he is at my right hand. I shall not be moved. Right? Psalm 46, that one is actually not the right one. It's Psalm 21:7. I wonder how that got mixed up there. I have 2 Psalms up there. That's weird. For the king trusteth in the Lord, and through the mercy of the Most High he shall not be moved. So you see, putting your trust in God, being an upright character, you're not going to be moved. And we understand what that means. And he's taken it to mean that the earth, that's an inanimate object, is not going to be moved in the same way. Right? That just doesn't make any sense. And we can understand this as what I already brought up, where in Joshua, he prayed the sun and moon would stand still, and they did. And that's what it says. It doesn't say the earth stopped moving. It said the sun and the moon stood still because they traveled through their circuits, as the Bible tells us. It doesn't say anything about the earth moving, spinning, or anything. Right? Nothing. That's why I'm kind of curious of what he's actually going to bring up to show that the earth is moving. And he could still say later on earthquakes or something stupid like that, the earth opening up to swallow Korah and what have you. But generally, it just doesn't move because it's not moving. And I decided to throw a couple of scriptures in here, something to think about. 2 Samuel 22 at verse 8, it says, Then the earth shook and trembled. And what we have here is a semicolon, which means what's following is directly connected, is the same thought that was just said. The earth shook and trembled. And then it says, the foundations of heaven moved and shook because he was wroth. So the heaven shook. Its foundation shook. And that is a connection to what was just said, that the earth shook. So the earth is the foundation of the heaven. That's kind of weird if it's a spinning ball flying around, right? It's the foundation of the heaven. That's kind of tough. That's kind of a tough one to have there. I wonder if this is something that he would purposefully cover up to show that it's, that he's not of God. And so I don't know. I don't even know if he'll even watch this stuff. He says it's not worth his time. So anyway, Isaiah 66 verse 1, it says, Thus saith the Lord, the heaven is my throne, and the earth is my footstool. Where is the house that ye build unto me, and where is the place of my rest? Now that's kind of a crazy footstool, right? I mean, it's a ball that's spinning, right? So not only that, imagine resting your feet on a spinning ball that's also flying around the sun, that's flying around through space. That's got to be awkward. Just having your legs flying around like that, twisted all up and stuff. That's just kind of funny to picture. That's like some kind of cartoon. You see Bugs Bunny doing something like that, right? Because it's ridiculous. But just a couple things to think about. Uh, Coming over here to Psalm 46, this is one of the things he brought up to show that the earth will eventually be moved. And I agree. The reason why the earth doesn't move is because God said so. So when he completely annihilates it, it's going to be removed. Like he brings up here, Psalm 46, therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea. So, yeah, I'm not too sure this is actually talking about when God's going to destroy the heavens and the earth and rebuild them. But I get the point that he's trying to make, that one day God is going to destroy the earth and rebuild it. So, yeah, this doesn't change anything. It doesn't prove the shape of the earth or anything like that, right? A lot of things he's talking about in his videos have nothing to do with the shape of the earth, nothing to do with proving how it's flat, proving how it's spherical, or disproving that it's flat or disproving that it's spherical. It's just a lot of fluff, right? There's nothing really here to use, right? There's nothing here that he's brought up that's disproving anything or proving anything. It's a lot of just beating around the bush, right? It's all he's doing. And it's what is he called a purposeful cover-up. And when he said purposeful cover-up's not a God, right? Because it's a lie, right? Lies is a sin, and that's not good fruit. And Brian talks about how you should have a changed life. Well, your changed life should involve you not lying and doing purposeful cover-ups, right? I would think he would even agree to that. And right where I stopped the video is where he said this really stupid thing. Since he doesn't have evidence, he has to come up with weird things. So what did he say? Oh, atheists. I wouldn't be surprised atheists using the flat Earth to just to try to mess with Christians. And then all of a sudden he was like, I didn't just think it. My wife and I were actually looking this stuff up, and she actually found some things where atheists were using the flat Earth just to mess with Christians. So therefore, it's not true because atheists are using it to mess with Christians. So we're not going to look at the evidence. We're just going to say, oh yeah, let's just dismiss it because atheists are doing it. You know what this reminds me of? There's a YouTube user that goes by the name Probably Alexandria. I like her videos. I guess I'd recommend them. It has a lot to do with Freemasonry stuff and MK Ultra, but she has some interesting stuff that has to do with Donald Trump and this cult of CAC. But her doctrine is not sound. She made a video talking about dispensations, and she just basically did the same thing Brian did here and dismissed the dispensational teaching by saying, oh, it's a creation of the Jesuits. She didn't prove it. She didn't get into the doctrine of dispensations and show why people believe it and then show how that's wrong and then prove something counter to it. She just dismissed it by saying, oh, the Jesuits created it, so it's not something you should actually believe. And that's basically what Brian did. Oh, the flat earth, oh, the atheists use it just to mess with you, so don't even get into it. That's just dismissing it, right? That's doing exactly the opposite of what God tells us to do in Proverbs. Whoever judges something before they even look into it, it's a shame when it falls onto them, right? And yeah, it's just you got to watch out for people who say things like that. Like they're very dismissive, then you know these people aren't on the right track. They don't care about discussing anything and getting into the truth of the matter. Because you find this with a lot of people when you talk about the pre-trib rapture. What do they say? Oh, that didn't exist until around 1830 when Darby came up with it, right? And they're like, have you ever looked into it? No. You tried discussing it, get into detail about it? Don't want to, don't really care. Same thing with people with the flat earth. They just dismiss it and you go, hey, you want to talk about it? No, 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 no. It's like, oh, that's kind of weird. Because Catholics, I'll talk to them. And I say, have you looked into Catholicism? And I have, but there was a time where I haven't. So it'd be like, no, wasn't afraid to look into it. And they share things with me. And I'd be like, well, this doesn't line up with the scriptures. Why can't you do the same thing when it comes to something like the flat earth? Yeah, I'll look into that. Why do I have to fear looking into this? If it's wrong, it will be obviously shown that it's wrong. But the problem is when people know that they're wrong and that there's evidence to support the other side, all of a sudden they become political debaters. That's why I'm against debate, is because nobody discusses anything. Like what I would like to do is just focus on one point at a time. Like with the flat earth, with Christians anyway, you can't do this with non-Christians. Use the Bible. Talk about the sun and the moon standing still and that impact that would have if there was actually the earth that stood still. Focus on something like that, and let's focus on that and talk about that and reason together. But you see, somebody who knows they're wrong and knows you're right, they don't want to do that. They don't want to discuss because that means they have to eat humble pie and admit they were wrong. A lot of people don't want to do that, and other people have agendas. They have agendas. There's something backing them up, supporting them, that doesn't want them to speak about certain things. What I notice about 501c3 organizations, there's a few things that they can actually speak out against. And one of those things is the shape of the earth. If you notice all these groups that are 501c3 organizations, I made video about it, talking about the things they can't seem to really talk about and they can't have an opinion on. So it kind of makes me wonder about what's going on with Brian Dellinger here and why he is so upset about this. And yeah, he was saying it's bothering him that there's people who would even wear a T-shirt saying "Ask me about the flat Earth" and stuff. And oh, Christians doing this. It's like, yeah, well, what's wrong with that? Getting people to see that shirt, maybe laugh at you and be like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" And then you can actually open up the Bible to them. And then you just started a stepping stone to bring them to Jesus. I got shirts that say all kinds of different things to hopefully start a conversation with somebody. Something like normal isn't coming back, Jesus is. Or Jesus is coming soon with an hourglass. Or I got one that's Mr. Bones there, talking about the dead in Christ will rise first. Right? Getting people thinking about the rapture. Just little things out there to get people to think. Even if they don't ask you a question, they might look at it and think about it. Especially when you put a verse there, they'll look and try to remember the verse because they'll go look at it later. Right? You're just planting seeds. You're doing some watering. You might just do a little bit. You might have this little patch of a garden that you're doing. You're not doing a whole farm that some people are doing. They got a whole farm of the seeds they're planting and watering. It's acres of land, right? You might just have a small patch of garden that you're doing. Then that's all you're doing, right? Just do what God is using you to do. But he's against that for some reason. I wonder if he's against somebody wearing a shirt saying evolution is bogus, proven creation. For some reason, if you do the flat Earth, it's wrong. I asked him on his video and asked others, like, what is so evil about the flat Earth? What are you getting so worked up about? And the only response I've got from anybody was somebody saying, it gets you to reject creation and offend the sacrifice. And it was like, how? What are you talking about? That doesn't even make sense. But I don't know. Just keep watching. I'll splice into this. All right. I was listening on, and he just said something bewildering, so I had to make another little section for this. He was talking about how people say the earth is flat because when Jesus returns, every eye will see him. So if in order for every eye to see him, the earth has to be flat. And he was saying, you're limiting God. We just don't know. We just don't know these things. And I was like, that's kind of strange. I mean, you sound like you're using the same argument atheists use. You ever talk to an atheist and they want you to prove God exists, and they say you have no evidence that God exists, and you say, well, you're an atheist, which means you know God doesn't exist. How do you know that? And then you may talk them into saying, well, I'm agnostic, right? We just don't know. And then it's kind of like, well, if you just don't know, why are you so adamant that one side's right and the other side's wrong? And that's what I was seeing from Brian here is we just don't know. Well, then why are you so adamant that the sphere is right and the flat earth is wrong? Why? If we just don't know, why do you feel so strongly to one side over the other? It just doesn't make sense. But what are you going to do? Now, he did say another thing that I thought was kind of funny. I was like, he needs to get his child some better books. Because he was saying, oh, yeah, we got some books for the child there where he goes, what shape is this? And it'll show something like a cube, and the answer would be square. And if you saw like a ball, you say a circle. It's like, well, you need to get him a better book, right? Because the shape of a box is a cube, and the shape of a ball is a sphere. It's not a circle, it's not a square, right? I mean, you need to teach your child correctly. A circle is a flat two-dimensional object. A three-dimensional circle is a sphere. A square is a two-dimensional object. A three-dimensional square, the box, is a cube. Right? You need to teach them these things. We don't need them thinking that three-dimensional objects can be described two-dimensionally, or vice versa. Right? It leads to confusion. Don't need to have that kind of confusion. But I thought this was kind of funny here. He actually brings this up himself. Proverbs chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, he wants to focus on the root of the righteous shall not be moved. That root, Jesus Christ, won't be moved. Nothing's going to move him, proving this immovableness, right? But the first verse here says, whoso loveth instruction loveth knowledge, but he that hateth reproof is brutish. And that's what a lot of people have to say about Brian Dellinger. Brutish. Maybe not that exact word, but a word that is synonymous with being brutish. His YouTube username is even born again barbarian. Barbarians are brutish, right? And we see that he's not a big fan of being instructed and reproved, as he's been reproved on this issue, but he's still going to fight against it, right? Talk about how there's four corners on a sphere, and he's probably teaching his child that nonsense, that there's four corners on a ball. Yeah, that makes a whole lot of sense, right? But yeah, he even brings up this verse himself. Isaiah 40, verse 22, it says, "It is he that sitteth upon the circle of the earth." That's a two-dimensional shape. Now, he tried to use his child books to try to say that this is a three-dimensional object when God used a two-dimensional shape here. It's funny because in Isaiah, there's a different word used when it mentions God throwing out some people over the wall or out of his city like a ball. And that's a three-dimensional object. But here it doesn't use that same word. It uses a two-dimensional circle. And it makes more sense that this circle is God's footstool, and he took a seat on his footstool. Right? That makes more sense than him sitting on a ball that's spinning and flying around. But anyway, it goes on and says, "And the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretcheth out the heavens as a curtain, and spreadeth them out as a tent to dwell in." So you see here, this is like the firmament acting like a tent coming over the earth. Right? And he tries to dismiss this with his lack of, I don't even know a word to use there. I guess just a lack of knowledge. I guess just call it ignorance, because he says, oh, I can look up at the sky and I can see the curvature of the heavens. Now, if it was this dome that goes from one side of the earth to the other, I wouldn't be able to see it. I wouldn't be able to see this curvature. And that's not exactly true, especially with perspective. Now, I suppose I'll bring this up. Wasn't going to use this video to necessarily prove the flat earth, but I guess he has a misunderstanding here. I'll use a couple of pictures. This drawing looks kind of interesting. We'll use that one. I want to find a hallway. You know, this one works. Let's open that one up. Let's see. That bridge might work. Here's a hallway. Perfect. Let's use these three. All right. This one, like looking straight up into the sky, right? It looks like these buildings. Let me shrink this down. Looks like these buildings are not going straight, right? It looks like they're all kind of curving towards the center point of view of your observation, right? Your center view is roughly here, and it looks like all the buildings are kind of curving up towards that, but they're not. That's just perspective. We see here looking down the street. The interesting thing is that like these trees could all be the same height, and the buildings could be roughly the same height. But when you look down the street, it looks like they're shrinking, right? And not only that, look at the street. The street, let's say, is 20 feet across, but down here, it looks like it's like a foot across. And it's shrinking. But that's perspective, right? And it looks like the street is going up, but it's actually straight. You could probably take a level or a laser level right here, and someone stand down at the end of the street, and it would be flat, right? But it looks like from here it's going up. That's kind of strange. So you need to apply the same things you see below you as above you as when we look down a hallway, right? The hallway looks the opposite, where the ceiling looks like it's coming down and in a sense kind of curving away from you, coming down. And the floor looks like it's coming up. And the walls looks like they're coming in. But they're not. It's called perspective. That's how your eyes view things in this pyramidal kind of shape, right? So just because you can see, oh, look, it's curving. No, it just appears that way because it's getting further away. It looks like it's coming down. Like let's say in each one of these, in between each one of these lines, right? You see these curved line here, curved line, curved line. Let's say there's a light. So you have a light source here, it's right above you. Here, it's still above you. Over here, still above you. But it starts to look like it's coming down to eye level, right? Right around here, it's starting to come down. Oh, that light's coming down. What the heck? But all of these would, let's say this hallway is 10 feet high. Each one of these lights that you would see are still 10 feet above you, but they look like they're going down. How would that be? But they're all 10 feet above you. Yet it looks like they're going down to meet you at eye level. So right here at eye level, that's 10 feet high. That's also, let's say you're 6 feet tall. So it's 4 feet above you. And the floor is 6 feet below you, below your eye level, roughly, right? But right here, the floor looks like it's moved up 6 feet and that the ceiling moved down 4 feet. That's strange. And the walls, check that out. Let's say you're right here in the middle, and let's say it's 10 feet across. You're roughly in the middle, so each wall is about, let's just say 4 feet away from you. Let's say you take up 2 feet, right? Each one of these blocks is 2 feet. And now the walls, they look like they moved 4 feet in. But none of this actually happened. That's just how it looks. Right? And if you would walk down the hallway to see, hey, I'm going to go reach all the stuff came down to my eye level, you run down there. So we're at block 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's just say it's 12 blocks down. So you count. I'm going to run down 12 blocks. You run down these 12 blocks. Oh, wait, that's a three-dimensional object. Squares. Let's make this correct here. It's squares. You move 12 squares down. I don't want to confuse anybody. Run down 12 squares. Guess what? You would have this same view. You would look like, hey, yeah, the light is 4 feet above my head. The floor is 6 feet below my eyes. And the walls are 4 feet away from me on either side. Because it's the same height and width that it is, but it doesn't look it. It's called perspective. So you need to realize that when you're looking out to sea, you're looking out on the Great Plains, and you see a plane going overhead, for an example. It looks like it's starting to come down, but it's actually never losing altitude at all, right? It's coming down straight, staying, let's say, 30,000 feet in the air. And it just keeps going straight, but then it looks like it's going down from your perspective. So when you see the sun or the moon, let's just say it's 5,000 miles in the air, just throwing a number out there. And it's going straight, staying at 5,000 miles in the air. It's going to look like it ends up going down because that's called perspective. So just because you see this curvature, oh, I saw the sun come up, it looks like it's coming up, and then it's going to curve back down. It's called perspective. You see, and he's ignorant of this. And what's worse is that he won't accept the reproof and actually look at these things. It's not as if we're his enemies. We just, as flat earthers, hey, hear us out. And stop spreading false information about us. Right? And you got to be consistent. Right? If you're going to say, hey, if people don't follow the scriptures on certain issues, they're not really saved. Well, then, hey, what are you going to do with this? The sun and the moon stood still, not the earth. You're not believing the word of God. You're not believing the truth. Jesus is the truth. Jesus is the word of God. You're rejecting him. Maybe not entirely, but in this aspect, you're rejecting him. And it's one of those things that you need to be worried about, because you deny him, he denies you, right? You have an opportunity here where God's giving you the truth, and if you accept it, there's two things he does. He gives you more. He's like, if you take the light, he gives you more. All right, you want more? Here you go. And not only that, he'll reward you when he finally comes to get us. It actually reminds me of this proverb. I don't think it's in the scriptures. It might be something that allures to it, but it was some proverb. I don't know where exactly it's from, but it's quite clever, saying that there's somebody that's coming to you asking for water. You don't give them a full glass of water. Give them something like a half a glass of water, right? Because you don't know what they mean by how thirsty they are. And if you give them a full glass, they might just take a little bit and, oh, they didn't finish the water, right? If they're thirsty and they want more than just a glass, when you give them a half a glass, they will drink the whole thing and they'll ask for more, right? And it's better for them to ask for more than for you to give them too much and they give it back. And it's the same thing like we see with God. You may say, hey, I want the truth and all, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Or you say, all right, let's see. Is that really what you want? All right, well then, I'm going to do that. Here's the truth. And he gives you a little bit, and you drink it up. You eat it. And he's like, okay. You want more? Yes. Here you go. And he gives you a little bit at a time. Because if he gave you all of it at once, there's a good chance you wouldn't eat it all, right? You'd just waste it. Dismiss it. But if you accept what you're given, you end up getting more. And that's what I've noticed with God, is that the more that I accept, even though the more that I accept, the more it seems as though the road gets narrower and there's fewer people on it, and there's more and more mockers and scoffers, he reveals more and more of himself and more of the truth. And that's what I want. And I want the strength to be able to be his fool in this world. Like, oh, you believe the flat earth? You're an idiot. Well, I'm God's idiot. I don't mind. Like, I've come not to respect the world or the opinion of the world. Because these people, they make these judgments, but they never really looked into any of this. Right? And they sit there and call you an idiot when they haven't even looked into whatever they're calling you an idiot for in the first place. It's like a lot of people have never grown up and matured from high school. Right? They've never learned, and they still have that same mindset and follow peer pressure and care what the world thinks of them. And some of these people, it's like they never break from that. There's always something that gets a hold of us, and we just need to pray. In this case, a lot of Christians, it's the flat earth. Just pray. All right, God, if this is the truth, reveal it to me so that I know it and understand it, and that I may have the humility to actually accept it. But if it's not true, show it. Reveal to me how it's wrong, and help me walk in that. Just be honest. Honest with yourself, obviously honest with God, and go from there. Now, I think I'm going to finish watching his video. I might take a break, but it'll just seem like a few seconds to you guys. So, stay tuned, I suppose. All right. I finally finished up his video. And I thought he was actually going to show how the Bible tells us that the earth is moving, as in it's spinning, and that it's going around the sun. But he didn't show that. He just basically showed that the earth can move basically in the sense of an earthquake, just like I thought he was going to do. And I'll talk about that. I'm going to bring up some of the scriptures he brought up, and then I'm going to go over my notes here. So first things first here, he brings up Isaiah 24, verse 19. It says, the earth is utterly broken down, the earth is clean dissolved, the earth is moved exceedingly. So he's saying, see, the earth can be moved. I was like, what do you think's going on here? It says the earth is clean dissolved. It's broken down, it's dissolved. That sounds like God just destroyed it. So yeah, I would say, yeah, okay, that's moved. But that doesn't show that it's moving as in it's spinning. And it's also going around the sun. You know, when you say, oh, the earth moves, that's what the actual moving we're talking about, is that it's not spinning in a circle and it's not flying around the sun. There's no evidence to show that the earth is moving like that. Yes, there's earthquakes, mountains crumble, the earth rips open, islands sink. Yes, the earth moves in that sense. Just like in the sense of a tree moves. It doesn't move as in it's firmly planted where it is, but the wind makes it move around. When you climb on it, you move it around. When other animals climb on it and stuff, it moves. So yes, it can move, but when you say it's immovable, you're talking about how it stays in one spot. And in the sense of talking about the earth and saying that the earth doesn't move, we're talking about it not spinning in place while it's also flying around the sun in a circle. So this was just a complete waste of time. I don't know why he spent 50 minutes talking about how the earth can be shaken, which is pretty much what he did. Right? It's just like, really? But yeah. We see here a connection here to Revelation 20, verse 11. It says, and I saw a great white throne and him that sat on it, from whose face the earth and the heaven fled away, and there were found no more place for them. So you see here, that sounds like the earth broken up and dissolved, right? It's just gone. That sounds like what we were reading in Isaiah, right? Broken down and dissolved. Yeah, I don't think anybody who's a Christian who believes the flat earth doesn't believe that the earth is going to be destroyed and technically moved. What we're saying is it's not spinning while it's spinning around the sun. This is just stupid. This guy is kind of a charlatan. I think he's just using this subject to generate some attention. I was trying to think, what is his agenda here? I was like, oh, it's probably to instigate people to want to make reply videos, to comment, and yeah. But anyway, he brings up a couple of passages from Jeremiah. Jeremiah 49 at verses 20 and 21, it says, therefore hear the counsel of the Lord, that he hath taken against Edom, and shall purpose that he hath purposed against the inhabitants of Teman. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. The earth is moved at the noise of their fall. At the cry, the noise thereof was heard in the Red Sea. So we see here, the earth is moved. And it's Edom falling down kind of like a tree. Falls down, boom, if it's a big tree, it's going to shake the earth a bit, right? Boom, make a noise. Oh my, the earth moved. Now it's spinning differently, right? No, it shook. Oh my, see, it can move. This proves the spherical earth and the earth spinning and flying around the sun. Really? Because that's not what it. No one's going to argue against this. This is silly. This was 50 minutes of basically talking about this over and over again. It really was. And then when we come over to Jeremiah 50, it talks about this again in connection with Babylon. It says 45 and 46 here. Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord, that he hath taken against Babylon, and his purpose that he hath purposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. At the noise of the taking of Babylon, the earth is moved, and the cry is heard among the nations. See, the earth is moved when Babylon is taken. The earth is moved. Now, he was saying, oh, if you think the earth can't be moved, you make the Bible a contradiction. No. You see, this moving, what do you think this means? That the earth moved, or that the people on the earth moved? He drew a connection to Revelation, saying right here, Revelation 16, verse 18, and there were voices and thunderings and lightnings, and there was a great earthquake, such as was not since men were upon the earth. So mighty an earthquake, and so great. And that great city was divided into 3 parts. And great Babylon came into remembrance before God. Now, he's making it sound as though this was the fall of Babylon. It's not. As it says, oh, now Babylon is come into remembrance. Right? And we actually read about what happens to Babylon over here in Revelation 18. And it says here, verses 9 and 10, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament her when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, alas, alas, that great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come, because she is destroyed. And look, the whole earth is moved, because moved can be an emotional state. Like that movie moved me, that play moved me, that story moved me, right? That sermon moved me, right? And we see here, such as in Deuteronomy 32:21, they have moved me to jealousy with that which is not God. You see how God was moved, and God is immovable, but he was moved to jealousy. You see, this is talking about his emotional state. We also see Joshua 15:18, that she moved him to ask of her father a field. So she got him to move. So when we read about what Brian was talking about in the Psalms about, hey, you're built upon the Word of God, you're built upon the Lord, you have your trust in him, you walk uprightly, you're not going to be moved in that you're going to be swayed from your way. Right? Where we see here Joshua 15:18, that she moved him to ask of her father a field. So you see, he was changed. He was in a certain way. She moved him in his attention towards this. Like we see God was moved to jealousy by what they were doing. Right? So when it says that the whole earth was moved, yeah, it can mean that it was shaken like a great earthquake. And people believe the flat earth believe in earthquakes. We know earthquakes exist. Some of us have been through earthquakes. So when we read that the earth is immovable, we're not saying that it can't move in any way whatsoever. So like mudslides are a conspiracy, earthquakes are a conspiracy. This is just stupid. It really is. But here I am. Here I am. Just getting in the mud with a pig here. So, you're foolish either way, right? Proverbs says if you answer a fool in his folly, he'll hate you. But if you don't answer him, he's gonna be wise in his own conceit. So it's like damned if you do, damned if you don't kind of thing, right? I mean, you could just pick either way. You want to be hated, speak up. If you just want to watch him go mess up his life, don't say anything. Either way is annoying, right? But yeah, coming back to this here, go over the notes now. He was saying that when you're talking about the flat Earth, you look like a fool to the world, right? He's like, so what? Why do you care about looking like a fool to the world? That seems to be what his motivation is. He doesn't want to look like a fool. Yet, let's come over to some scriptures. I mean, you shouldn't be worried about looking like a fool. I want to follow the truth, even if the world thinks it's foolish. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 18, for the preaching of the cross is to them that perish foolishness, but unto us which are saved, it is the power of God. But wait a second, you don't want to look foolish to the world, so don't preach the cross. Brian said you look foolish to them. That's not something you want to do. You don't want to look foolish, so don't do it. Right? Oh, but wait, Brian preaches. It says here, verse 21, for after that, in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. Oh, wait, he wants to use us to preach foolishly to the world? Huh. I mean, but Brian, you don't want to look foolish in front of the world, do you? That's kind of weird. Why would you even say such a thing? I know you're going to preach the gospel and it's foolishness to the world, but you shouldn't bring up foolishness to being a deterrent because that shouldn't be a deterrent for a Christian. It's just a silly thing to bring up, right? Because the foolishness of God is wiser than men and the weakness of God is stronger than men. Verse 25 has a few things to say about foolishness in this chapter right here. But I don't know what. When he was talking, I was just thinking of what I mentioned in one of the previous clips here is that there was a lady who was saying, oh, you shouldn't believe in dispensationalism because that was created by the Jesuits. And that's just silly dismissing of the topic at hand. And I was like, oh, I wouldn't be surprised if they try to say, oh, the Jesuits created the gospel of grace, that you're saved by grace through faith, that not of yourselves, a gift of God, not of works, as any man should boast. So a faith only, no work salvation, where you rely solely on Jesus Christ dying for your sins and giving you his perfect life in exchange. And the Jesuits made that up. So if you believe that, you're following the Jesuits, right? It's just dismissive. It's stupid. I think it's interesting because he says a lot of things in this video that he made where he condemns himself, right? Where he's like, I don't know what the foundations of the earth are. I don't know what they mean. But he's dang sure that have nothing to do with the flat earth, right? I don't know what they mean, but definitely don't mean the flat earth. Well, if you don't know what they mean, then you can't really say what they are in connection to the foundations of the earth, the pillars of the earth. Well, that doesn't mean what it means because that would mean a flat earth. So that, I don't know what it means, but it can't be flat earth. Right? This silly stuff that kept coming out of his mouth. I saw a different side of him. Like, why is he so worked up about this? How are people being led astray by this? Like, seriously, if somebody believes the flat earth, like myself, what false doctrine that am I caught into? That I'm like damning my own soul and leading others to damnation? None. But what I am doing is what he was saying at the end of his video to warn people about such things as the mark of the beast. When you're telling everybody that the earth's a sphere, you're opening up the door for these fallen angels to come and pretend to be aliens, and people believe it. But when you destroy that foundation they have, that they've been trying to build, that the earth is a sphere, and you tell them that it's a globe, it's flat, not a globe, then it makes them question aliens. No, no, no. These are fallen angels. So you're actually helping the people who are left behind by preaching the flat earth, by letting them know these aren't aliens. They are fallen angels. But if they have a foundation that the earth's a sphere, they're more likely to believe that it's aliens. But if you give them a good foundation that the earth is flat, you can give them a better foundation where they can question, I don't think these are aliens. Right? Then he talked again about, hey, you haven't seen it, so you can't talk about it. It's like, that is stupid. None of us have seen Jesus Christ, and we've never seen him crucified. But that's what we preach, Jesus Christ crucified. How he died for our sins, was buried, rose again the third day. We haven't seen that. He hasn't seen it, and that's what he preaches. It's like everything he was saying was a contradiction. Everything he said, he condemned himself. It was ridiculous. I was like, he's not thinking these things through. And he's so worked up about it. Man. He ends up showing some pictures of Israel, just as an example to prove Israel exists, saying that he doesn't need faith to know Israel exists. And I was like, well, that's kind of strange, because you made it seem as though looking for evidence of the shape of the earth is looking for a sign. Yet you use evidence to show that Israel exists, Jerusalem exists, and that's not seeking a sign. Right? Not to mention, he's for creation against evolution. That's where you use more science than the Bible. You just use Genesis saying God created us and death came after sin, not before sin. So, you use the scriptures as a foundation, and then you use science to show it, that the Bible is true. And Brian's for that, but not when you do it with the flat earth. When he made some mocking comments about, oh, I did a search for flat earth and stuff that had to do with the flat earth, and nothing pops up. It's like, that's weird, because when you type in globe earth, sphere earth, nothing pops up either. But I bet you have no problem believing that the earth is a sphere. Even though we got things talking about how the earth is a circle and it has 4 corners. How do you get 4 corners on a sphere? And in his only video he had up until recently about the flat earth, he showed a ball. So he was defending that the earth is a ball. At the end of this video that he made, he was like not defending either one. He was saying he's not defending either one. Even though in the only video he had for the longest time, he used a ball, his child's ball there, to try to say that there's 4 corners on a globe, on a sphere. It's like, you're full of shit. You're a liar. Right? You're sided to one side. The earth tells you, hey, a circle with 4 corners. Well, that's a ball. There's no way you get a ball out of a circle with 4 corners. That doesn't make any sense. Continuing on here. On that, he was saying flat earthers are hypocrites because they use drawings and paintings and digital pictures to depict the flat earth while calling out NASA for doing the same thing. There's a difference. NASA claims they are real. Okay? I don't know anybody who believes the flat earth that's saying, oh, I've took these pictures myself from my spaceship, even though I can't get past the Van Allen belt because of the radiation. But yeah, I went up pretty high with my spaceship and took a picture of the earth, and here, this flat earth, see, told you. No, but NASA tries to say, oh yeah, we went up past the radiation belt, and it didn't destroy equipment, it didn't kill anybody. and we took these pictures. We took these pictures of the Earth, but they're not actual pictures. They're altered, right? So that's a lie. That's the problem. It's not so much that they're fake pictures, but that they're lying, saying that they're not. It's only recently that they've been admitting that they're composites. And it's kind of weird that they have to have these composites. Why can't they get far enough away to just take one picture of the Earth without having to put pictures together? It's showing you that something's up there. He made a comment in passing saying, "Oh, well, you all know better than I do. So, you do what you're doing." And that was very condescending and self-exalting right there. Because basically what he was saying is, you don't know better than I do. I know better than you. You need to listen to me. Yet, he's not presenting anything convincing. Such as when you said the earth was moved, I'm going to show you through the scriptures. Everybody who believes the flat earth is thinking, oh, he's going to show that the earth spins. And it's flying through the space around the sun. I was waiting for that evidence. If you presented that, I would have been like, whoa, I was wrong. Right? But you didn't. You basically showed how the earth has earthquakes. That's what you pretty much did. That was ridiculous. And he even made a comment about, oh, people are going to say I didn't answer anything. You didn't. And then you're hiding as if, oh, I did answer everything. That guy is a joke. I'm starting to realize what he's saying is true. It's a waste of time, at least to talk to him about this. So I don't plan on getting more into this. I'm going to probably back off from watching his videos and stuff. I might keep an eye out to see if he says something else about the flat earth. See if he eats some humble pie there, or actually talks about it. But yeah. Finishing up the notes here. He went on a little spiel about a humble man admits that he's wrong. That's kind of weird, because how many of us who believe the flat earth, how many of us had to eat humble pie to admit that the earth was flat? Right? Didn't we have to all admit that we were wrong? All of us have the foundation that it's a sphere. We all had to eat humble pie and realize we were wrong. When I first became a flat earther, I was trying to prove that it was a sphere. I saw some people talking about it, and I was like, that is ridiculous. So I went and I was like, I'm going to show that it's a sphere. I was like, that's the best way to do it. I'm not going to disprove their arguments. I'm just going to show that it's a sphere. And then I realized I couldn't. The only evidence I had was doctored pictures by NASA. So I was like, huh. All right, so I had to look more into it. And as I looked at the actual evidence, I was like, holy cow. This is actually flat. And then I was like, okay, so the circle, the circle's a two-dimensional shape. That doesn't mean sphere. And when it has four corners, I don't have to make something up, like four corners on a ball. It actually has four corners because it's flat. Okay, now it makes sense. I just was blinded to it and twisted what it was saying to fit my belief. But I did it ignorantly. So God had some mercy on that. Yeah, he did do a weird thing here. Coming to the end of his video, he was like, it's about the Bible. And then he was like, yeah, somebody shoots me, and people crying, and he did a mocking of crying and people saying that he was their hero and stuff. And he's like, it's not about me, it's about the Bible. It's like, well, it's kind of weird how you just showed your viewers how you thought of them, that they just look up to you as if you're their only hope. You're their hero. So it's like, what kind of people are following you? If that's what you think they're like, that's kind of strange. Then he talks about eating meat before milk. All right, a lot of us are Christians, and we believe the earth was sphere. It wasn't until into our adulthood, we actually looked at the earth being flat. So it's not as if we weren't eating the milk of the word before we came to this meat, right? So to act like, oh, we just skipped trying to eat the milk and just focus on the meat and just eating the meat, that's ridiculous. That's just stupid. It's dismissing again, because we can spend most of our time eating and drinking the milk, and then we spend this one time talking about the meat, talking about the flat earth, and then he acts like all we do is talk about the meat of the word and talk about the flat earth. It's just dismissive. This guy is not a very nice guy. And then he was talking about not supposed to fight about it. He's probably, if he watched this video, he'd probably think it's a fight because I don't agree with him. So if I'm fighting, then he's fighting, right? So he's saying you're not supposed to fight about it while he's fighting about it. That makes no sense. If he did anything to really wanted to prove that he believed it was a distraction, a waste of time, and that you shouldn't fight about it, he should have just made a 5-minute video saying, hey, this is a distraction, everybody. You shouldn't waste your time talking about the shape of the earth. Big distraction. You need to be focused on other things. It's a waste of time, and we shouldn't be fighting about this. Thank you for watching. Take care. End of that. Boom. Done. But instead, 2 50-minute videos fighting about it. That's kind of strange, right? Then he said another thing kind of telling. He was saying, I would not be swayed from my position, from my belief. And I was like, why not? I mean, you sound just like the Catholics. Right? Born a Catholic, die a Catholic. I won't be swayed. Okay, that doesn't prove you're right. Doesn't prove you're wrong. It just proves you're stubborn. That's about it. Like, I believe the earth is flat, but if new evidence was brought to me from the scriptures, from science, showing me how I was wrong, I would have to accept that. It would be maybe a little bit embarrassing, but it wouldn't be the first time I've been embarrassed. I had to admit I was wrong. I mean, it's not actually such a big deal anymore anyway. People laugh at me for believing this, so what would be the big deal about admitting I was wrong the whole time? Wouldn't be a big deal at all. But anyway, and then he again with the mocking, talking about how he buys more milk than meat. And it's just belittling, as if all we do is eat the meat, no milk, no Jesus, no preaching the gospel. This is all we do, all we feast on, and we haven't even come to Jesus as sinners. Is something he was kind of implying in the video too. And as if we talk about the flat earth and we bring people to believe in God by the flat earth, no mention of them being sinners and needing to be saved. We don't focus on that. We just focus on the flat earth. That's all we ever talk about. That's kind of like saying when Ken Hovind was doing his debates about evolution, that all he does is get into the meat of the word. All he does is talk about evolution. He doesn't preach the gospel and get people to admit they're sinners and come to Christ, even though that's what he did. He used evolution and proving it wrong with creation science to lead people to realize there's a God that they have sinned against and they need to get right with. And he used that to lead people to Christ. The same way you can do it with the flat earth. You've been lied to, and there is a God, and you're going to have to answer to him one day. You can do the same thing with the flat earth, but he acts like not possible. And I think it's because he doesn't want to look like more of a fool than he already looks like. Then he says just the stupidest thing again. Oh, we have, as flat earthers, we have the Bible, but not the Bible alone. The Bible plus these science books. We have these other books. And it's like, yeah, you look at all the other books you have behind you. Really? Why do you act like, oh, We get our doctrine from books outside of the Bible, but you don't with all the other books you have. I mean, really? As like the more I was listening to this guy, the more I lost respect for him. And some of the things he would say, I was embarrassed for him. Like, how can you feel comfortable saying these things where you're basically just condemning yourself on camera? Because everything he was saying about the people who believe flat Earth applied to him. It was just stupid. But it's kind of weird because if you have the Bible plus some science book on creation disproving evolution, does that mean you're using the Bible plus another book? Because I'm sure he got something that has to do with evolution and creationism. But he condemns it when it's something that is not what he believes. He even has books from the Catholic Church. So what? It doesn't mean you're not relying on the Bible alone. Get out of town. Again, he ends the video talking about we need to point them to Jesus. Totally true. Totally true. No one's going to argue with that. And the coming of the mark of the beast. And this actually ties into both of that. I didn't get into how the earth is flat in this video. Or how it's not a sphere. But I suggest you look into that. Look into it, see for yourself. Why would people say it's flat? Just to say it's flat? Just to be weird? Just to be different? Look into it. Why are they saying that? And if you come to the conclusion that the people who believe the flat earth are right, they have a reasonable reason to believe that the earth is flat, then you should realize that there's a God. There's a God, and he's going to judge us one day. Just like if I suggest you look into creationism. You believe in evolution? Well, look into that. I've made videos about the flat earth and about creation. Well, you need to realize there is a God, and we've offended him, and we're going to have to pay dearly for it unless we accept him on his terms to make peace. How he made peace with us is through Jesus Christ. How Jesus took upon him, our sin, our past, present, and future, our entire lives put upon Jesus. So that when we, by faith, call on him to save us, our life is given to him and his perfect life is given to us. His perfect life that rose from the dead. Right? I'll open up the scriptures a little bit here just to show that. Come over here to Romans chapter 6. It says this baptism of the Holy Spirit. Once you believe the gospel, the good news of your salvation, you're baptized with the Holy Spirit of God. It says, therefore we are buried with him by baptism into death, that like as Christ was raised from the dead by the glory of the Father, even so we also should walk in newness of life. And as it says here, verses 8 and 9, now if we be dead with Christ, we believe that we shall also live with him, knowing that Christ being raised from the dead dieth no more, death hath no more dominion over him. So you see, by faith, when you come to the cross and call on Jesus to save you, you die with him right there. Your whole life paid for in full. Not only that, your life is now connected to his. So when he rose from the dead, you rose from the dead. And Jesus dies once, death has no more dominion over him, which means death has no more dominion over you. Right? And you think all of this is foolishness? Well, the rapture's coming here pretty soon, and there's going to be the mark of the beast. Right? That's the other thing Brian was saying we gotta definitely preach about. He didn't quite preach about either of these two topics. He just said we had to preach about it. So I'll do what he didn't do. And this mark of the beast is coming. And you can't take it. If you take it, you're damned. Just like when you receive the seal of God, you're saved and you can't be lost. Well, if you take the mark of the beast, you are damned and you can't be saved. That's that. Right? So you can't take this mark. But there's going to be a group that shows up. That can't show up while the church is here because we have dominion over the spiritual realm, which are the supposed aliens, which are actually fallen angels. They're going to show up and they're going to promote this mark of the beast. So, yeah, I hope you can see how this flat earth shows you that these supposed supernatural beings, not supernatural, extraterrestrial beings, are actually supernatural beings, fallen angels. So don't fall for their BS. Don't take the mark. So with all that being said, thanks for watching and take care.